What a day, what a day.
Yeah, hi. On your programmes it says Laura, and Laura works as the education manager at the at Show Racism the Red Card, but you've got me. I also work in the education team, so you've got me today. We're going to talk a little bit about actually what we do with our work within schools. I'll explain a little bit about Show Racism the Red Card first of all. The organisation's been going for almost 20 years now. And for some of you who may have been involved with this before, may have seen things where we do things with sporting role models, particularly around the area of footballers. We're not concentrating really on working with kicking racism out of football, though there's a different organisation that does that. That's called Kick It Out. Show Racism Red Card is concentrating on kicking out racism within society, and one of the ways that we do that is that we do use high-profile sports people like kind of professionals and ex-professional footballers in order to help us get kind of that message across. As well as schools, we also do work in colleges, we do work in prisons, probation kind of services. We do events both at football stadiums and at sporting places, teacher training and equality training as well. So the football aspect is just a vehicle really for the work that we do. Here's an example of some of the packs. We've got educational packs that we work with and some of the areas that we've worked in. So Out of Sight looked at the area to do with prejudice against gypsies and travellers. That's our main one, which is just to do with racism. It's like it's not a problem, but yes, it's looking at kind of it's racism. No Place for Hate is looking at the rise of far right groups. Islamophobia was looking at anti-Muslim sentiment and hatred. A Safe Place was looking at kind of refugees. And then there's the homophobia as well. So there's lots of different areas that we work in, but our main work, our main bread and butter is working around the area of anti-racism. And most of the work that we do is with young people in schools. We've worked with about 50,000 people, 50,000 young people, that is, a year. And with regards to the North East, about 12,000. We've got offices all throughout the UK, but the actual head office is based here in North Shields. So as part of the workshops, what we do is we go and speak to young people for a couple of hours about anti-racism. We try and get them to be as open and honest as possible. We tell them that they're in a safe place. It means that in order to unpick some of the from the elements and the tenets that kind of start up racism, we need them to be honest. So they need to feel that they can say things honestly to us in order that we can have a discussion. And that sometimes means that difficult conversations have to take place. One of the exercises that actually that we do, we have found, particularly recently, although we deal with racism as a whole, is definitely anti-immigration and anti-Muslim sentiment that we were dealing with the schools that is like the predominant issues. It's definitely those two issues that far outstrip. I'm not saying that colour-based racism doesn't exist. It still does exist, and there still is prejudice within schools, but it's definitely anti-immigration and anti-Muslim sentiment that we're dealing with most of the time when we're dealing with schools. And so because we want to unpick this and we want to talk to them, we ask them what we call burning questions. So what we do for that is we say, you can write down any question that you want, even if it uses offensive language, put it on a post-it note, give it to us, and we will discuss that. It means that the anonymous nature of it means that they can be honest with us, but it also means that we can actually kind of get to the issues and talk about some of them. We also do something where we talk to them about what their big issues are. If they were to do a newspaper like The Big Issue, what would their big issues in their community be? So for this next one, I'm going to share with you some of the burning questions that we've got. Some of the language or some of the drawings or the images may be uncomfortable, but it is a reflection of what we see day in, day out in school, and therefore we think that it's important to be honest. And these are the words of the young people that we're dealing with. So this first one here was a question. We were asking questions of people, and the first one here with regards to a question is, Muslim men marry women and for their dowries, pour petrol on them and set them on fire. How are they allowed to get away with this? So that obviously is something that is so ridiculous and so inaccurate on so many levels, it's unbelievable. However, to that young person asking that question, it wasn't a question that they do. They don't ask these questions to shock. They ask these questions because they legitimately believe that that is the case. And so what we have to do is talk to these people about, well, where did you get this information from? Why do you think that kind of like might be inaccurate? Just telling somebody that they're wrong means that often they can quite get defensive about things and they'll shut down, they won't talk about anything else. So it's not talking to them about why kind of like they're wrong. Let's unpack why the reasons behind that. Where did they get that from? Where did they hear that from? How can they question that? And get them to think about the hows and the whys themselves and unpack those things. This is another one. Why should we have to change Britain for other races? A lot of the feeling that we get with regards to the young people is around the area of threat. They, often the children that we're talking about year 6, 7. So we're talking about people about 10, 11 years old. They can't feel that threat to themselves personally. That is a threat that they have picked up. Either they've read it in the newspapers, they've got it from family members or friends. So that's kind of the threat that we're dealing with. This one here for the big issue was about big issues that they have within their community that they feel would be if they wrote kind of a paper. And as we said, we've got their face covering, we've got black people get houses and flats after British people have to wait for ages, unemployment, take over kind of like every corner shop. And again, these are some of the views that these people have with regards to things, or these young people have. This one here again is about face coverings and the covering kind of the takeover of corner shops and black people and misunderstandings about what they are and the drawings that they do. Here we got them to do a list, and again it's threat or things they may have heard of, with threats to their safety, threats to employment, or it will be their father's or their mother's employment in this case. And threats that there's too many people, that they're eroding of culture, really, that racism, and that somehow there's a disparity with regards to racism, is in that kind of like black people suffer racism but that white people don't, and that's unfair, and that the police kind of like treat people unfairly as a result of that. This one here was by a 13-year-old boy, and was particularly troubling for us for the reasons I think that you can see. And one of the things with regards to the people that we speak to and the young people, again, is about, at that time, not necessarily branding them as racist, again, because they will shut down. We'll certainly tell them, we'll challenge them, and we'll certainly tell them that they have got racist ideas, but it's not about kind of like shutting down the lines of communication with these people. We're wanting to reach these people, educate them, correct some of the misinformation before it gets to this stage with some of the things that we've heard here with regards to people joining far-right groups, etc. So with regards to this, particularly the one kind of like about the EDL and the things that they've said, a lot of that actually in this particular case of this boy was to shock. But it is stuff that he believes. Now, as Daniel mentioned before, you're not born necessarily racist. Young people aren't necessarily racist. These are views that you're getting from someone else. And so although a lot of these things that I've shared with you are extremely unpalatable, it's, as I've said, it's not necessarily time to shock. A lot of it is about lack of knowledge about different cultures, lack of knowledge about different religions, lack of knowledge about different kind of like ethnicities. And you'll hear them talk about things that they're frustrated about, and it's just, who can they blame? So wait a minute, my grandma is white, she's looking for a house, she hasn't been given a house, that person there's been given a house, they're black, therefore they mustn't be British. Sometimes that kind of like equates that if you are of a different ethnicity or of a different religion, then you can't be British. Nationality often is kind of, that we find when we talk to them, they think it's synonymous with faith, and that you can't be British and Muslim. So when we're speaking to people, they think, well, you can't be British or Muslim, or you can't be English or Jewish. And so for them, it's very much that British or English equals kind of like Christianity. And so that instantly puts up a barrier, and that instantly puts up a difference between people. Sometimes it can just be simple misunderstandings. It can be misunderstandings that we've all heard before with regards to people's faith and regards to some of the things. Or it's just ridiculous misunderstandings where you think, oh, where have you got that from? An example would be a young person came up to us in a class, one of our classrooms, and said, do you know, and obviously correct me, I think he's wrong, but tell me, any of you people of the Muslim faith, if this is correct. He told me that Muslim people are allowed to park on double yellow lines. And I went, well, where did you get that? He went, oh, they are, because the police are worried about getting into trouble, so Muslim people can park on double yellow lines and they will never get in any trouble. And I said, if that was true, I would be travelling with Muslim people all the time. Good parking spots. But yeah, it can be simple misunderstandings like that. And again, what you'll find is it's just with a simple few words and corrections that you can not necessarily instantly change their view, but what we're talking about is planting the seeds that can change their views in the future. And what they tend to do is you just have to do a couple of those and everything comes crumbling down. So if they say to you, Muslims are allowed to park on double yellow lines, and you point out why that's wrong, and you get them to think about it themselves, they'll go, well, wait a minute, if that's not true, then maybe this isn't true, and maybe this isn't true, and maybe this isn't true. And then if you can get them to empathise about thinking about things, well, how do you feel about this, and how do you feel about that? Then everything starts to collapse. It's like a house of cards, and it starts to collapse, and they'll start questioning their beliefs with regards to everything. The EDL stuff, as I've said, was very kind of like upsetting with regards to them. But one of the things that we need to look at, and we look at with young people as well as adults, is why the EDL is compelling. What is compelling about the EDL with regards to some people that they feel that it's a good idea to join? So these are some of the reasons. Very much so, they're pushing the threat. They're pushing the threat agenda that kind of that Islam is this threat, and that these are the people that are going to be able to kind of fight against that threat. Immigration is a big concern for them. They're playing on people's fears. That is something that is troubling to a lot of people, not just young people, but people full stop with regards to immigration. And also negative attitudes towards multiculturalism. They feel that kind of culture is being eroded, basically, by having diversity, not recognising that our culture is what it is because of diversity. So it's the opposite way around, really. And also you'll find with these is they align themselves with other groups and other issues in order to say, well, that's what we believe too. So, for instance, you'll find people from the EDL aligning themselves a lot with animal rights groups. And so people are going, oh, well, they're into animal rights, and they've always been into that. That's quite good. No, the reason why they're aligning themselves with animal rights groups is because they were talking about halal meat. And so this is how we can attack. This is how we can be racist in this way. Or they'll say, well, wait a minute, we're very into gender rights, and so women's rights are very important. No, the reason why they do that is because they want to have a conversation about the niqab. Okay, so the EDL and members of these EDL, they weren't members of these groups before. They weren't interested in these groups before. So the reason why they're aligning themselves with these other groups is specifically so they can have a look at the area of race and attack people on their race. Daniel's also already mentioned things about the media, so I'm not going to go too much into this. But basically, yes, it's about like people are distressed over perceived or actual change. Change is scary for a lot of people, whether they be young people or old people. And when people see things changing, they look for blame. And so when they see things that are wrong in their lives, in their neighbourhoods, in their communities, they look for kind of a scapegoat. And often that does tend to be people of different religions or different ethnicities. We need to be clear about the fact, though, those things that you've seen with regards to the young people, not all people feel that way. Not all young people that we speak to feel that way. It's about what we're trying to do is about getting them to question their narrative that they read. Again, I won't go into 2 minutes, so I won't go into too much into detail with regards to the press because Daniel's talked about it already. But we could have a little quick look at that and just say there is absolutely no coincidence whatsoever that the rise in anti-immigration and anti-Muslim sentiment that we have seen has also come along at the same time that there has been a rise in these kind of headlines in the media. The media has got a huge amount of influence with regards to the way that people see the world, and therefore it's got a huge amount of influence with regards to young people. Even if they're so young that they don't regularly read newspapers themselves, that's something that their parents read and it gets passed down to them. So the media have got a huge responsibility with regards to that. And in fact, we did some work with somebody called Richard Peppiatt. And so what people tend to forget is newspapers is about getting news. It's about getting information. It's about finding out what goes on in the world. It used to be. It's not anymore. Newspapers are a business. They're in the business to make money. They make money by selling papers. They know that negative stories, particularly the ones that are about immigration or particularly ones that are about Islam, sell papers. And if that means they have to pay somebody to make up a story, then they will do that. So although he quit his job, it was a while before, like he did. And there are a lot more kind of journalists who are working within that area where they are paid in order to make up stories about that they know that will sell, that they know a negative sell, which means that cycle continues going because people believe these stories are true. Also, one of the things that we find that you will see in the media is the homogenization of of Muslim or the word Muslims. So the examples we've got there is people talk about the Muslim world or the Muslim community, Muslim countries or Islamic law or Islamic dress. What does that mean? It's about kind of collapsing Muslim people into one group. If I was to ask any Muslim people here in the room today what it means to be a Muslim, I know that the basic tenets, there will be commonalities amongst all of you, but none of you will answer exactly the same thing, because what it means to be a Muslim for you is very different to what it means to be a Muslim for another person because of your individuality. And so one of the things that we try to teach, both with adults and with children, is you need to recognise people's individuality. If you homogenise a group, it's easier to make things kind of like us and them. And so you need to kind of recognise the diversity that exists, not just within different communities, but within the Muslim faith itself. And when they recognise that, if we say to a 14-year-old girl, for instance, do you think that you're the same as this 14-year-old girl, or this 14-year-old girl, or this? And they go, oh no, we've got some things in common, but this is what she likes, this is what I like, this is how we're different. When we explain, do you not think that's the same for people of the Muslim faith? So when they think of a negative thing or a negative stereotype to do with somebody from the Muslim faith, we're saying, where are you getting that from? Where are you hearing that from? Well, that's what they're like, aren't they? Well, A, it's not an us and them, and B, no, that's what you've heard about one particular Muslim person. And you don't necessarily actually even know any Muslim people. This is something that you may have heard about something. So what we try to do with regards to that is to eliminate that idea about the homogenization and recognize the kind of like the diversity that there is within kind of like the Muslim faith. Lastly, as I finish off then, it's just about kind of like recognising. I'd love to say, and you know what, and this is how we solve it, but yeah, unfortunately, no such easy answers with regards to that. But I'll talk about some of the ways that we do it. One of the things that Daniel mentioned earlier on, which I think is really interesting, was about that top-down approach. And that's one of the things that we can have a look at. He's very much right with regards to that, with regards to racism. What we need to do is those structures, the structural racism, or the people in power, whether that be government or newspapers or whatever, they need to be not far more diverse, they need to be more representative of us. If we're going to change the system and change things from a top-down approach, there needs to be more people like us, whether that's more women, whether that's more black people, whether that's more people from different religions. We need to see a more representative idea of what society is that can feed down, and that will kind of help things. And also, obviously, we work in the area of education, so education for us is key. We need to examine our own prejudices, because if we're prejudiced against other people, then obviously we can't say, well, you should be prejudiced against this person because they're of a different faith than you, if by the same kind of like token we're going ahead and we've got those prejudices ourselves. Everybody's got prejudices. It's about what we do with them, how we deal with them, how we challenge ourselves in order to try and eliminate as much as possible. And basically, what we need to do with regards to the young people that we work with is about the heart, the how, and not the what. And what we mean is we need to teach young people how to think, how to critically think, how to pull apart what they see in the media, how to pull apart what they may hear on the schoolyard, how to think about what they may have heard from their parents, and think about the reasons behind that. If they know other stories aren't true, why would they necessarily believe this about somebody from this different faith? So it was about making them examine. And so, as I've said, there's no easy answers with regards to how we solve this. Obviously, all of us, I'm preaching to the converted here, because obviously all of us are here because this is something that we believe in. But we need to make sure that we pass it down to the young people, because as much work as we can do, it's that next generation that are going to make the real change within society. And we need to make sure that they are informed as possible, so they don't go down the path that some of these gentlemen have been talking about earlier on. Okay, thank you very much.
What a day, what a day.